Yeah. What I have going on.
Brendan, we're ready when you are.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, Emily, please, if you would do the roll call.
Mr. Mark Rickards.
Here.
Mr. Brett Whitfield.
Here.
Mr. Drew
I
Bartlett.
don't think she's on.
Here.
Miss Leah Furch.
Here.
Mr. John Paxman.
Present.
Mr. Brendan Lynch.
Here.
Mr. Tom Copeland is not present. Mr. John Paxman.
Present again.
Did I?
I'm twice as good. I'm here twice.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, David Tolles, Board Attorney. Before you start, can I just read the little blurb regarding this virtual meeting?
Thank you.
Right. Oh, Emily, can you let Commissioner Rickards into the meeting? And Commissioner Whitfield. But while she's doing that, I'll read this. The Lake Worth Beach Community Redevelopment Agency is holding a public meeting on January 12, 2021 due to the state of emergency in Palm Beach County and the need to limit capacity at the CRA meetings. The CRA is providing the public with the ability to observe the meeting via Zoom. In order to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the CRA's clients and employees, the CRA finds it is in the best interest of the CRA, its officials, employees, and members of the public to limit the in-person attendance to only CRA commissioners and employees. The public meeting is taking place at Hatch, 1121 Lucerne Avenue, Lake Worth Beach, Florida. However, the building will remain closed to the public. A copy of the agenda is posted on the CRA's website, www.lakeworthcra.org. Any comments related to any item on this agenda should have been submitted to the CRA no later than 5 p.m. on Monday, January 11th, through the designated address. You can join the Zoom meeting by the meeting ID is 879-3142-8466. Passcode is 488510, or you can dial 1-929-205-6099. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, David. I'm not sure if we're doing Pledge of Allegiance with half of us virtual and half not. We'll just move past that and everybody can do that silently. On the agenda, are there any additions, deletions, or reordering? Okay, seeing none.
Oh, wait.
We'll
Actually,
okay, Mark.
sorry, Mr. Chair, I was muted. I see there's a public comment on the consent agenda, item B. If you want to just talk about that when we get to consent agenda, that's fine. But I wanted to move that consent agenda item B be moved to action agenda. It'll still be fast, but it gives us a chance to talk about it.
Okay. So you're making a motion to move from consent item B, moving that item to action item B, as
Or A, like wherever you think it fits, and that's if the rest of the board agrees.
okay. So I think we need a formal motion. Are you in agreement with that motion? Or is that your motion, Mark?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
This is Brent. I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Not sure how I'm going to see this, but please, I don't know. David, you want to?
I would just recommend you call roll for each vote
Okay,
tonight.
sorry. Emily, could you? We usually save this for close votes or really important decisions, but in this case.
Mr. Mark Rickards.
Yes.
Mr. Brett Whitfield,
Yes.
Mr. Drew Bartlett. Drew?
He's saying
I
yes.
heard him say yes. Miss Leah Furch,
Yes.
Mr. Brendan Lynch,
Yes.
and Mr. John Paxman.
Do I get to vote twice? So I'll vote twice, yes.
Just one time.
Okay, I'll vote once, yes.
Emily, I don't see Commissioner Bartlett in the meeting. You might need to add him.
Yeah, I don't see him in the waiting room.
I think he's
So
having
he'll-
trouble getting on, but he's physically here. I see him, I swear.
Yeah, I know.
I'll figure it out.
Okay.
There he is.
Can you record his vote?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any other agenda additions, deletions, or reordering? Okay, moving on to public comment on non-agenda items. I don't think we're doing public comment on non-agenda items unless they've been sent in prior. So is there anything to read into the record?
There is not.
Thank you, Emily. We're looking for a motion on the minutes, first being October 13th, 2020. Can I get a motion on those minutes?
This is Brent. Move to pass October 13th minutes.
Second, Paxman.
Okay, we have a first and a motion and a second. All those in favor, state aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B, November 10, 2020. Can I have a motion on that as well?
Move.
Second, Paxman.
Okay, moved by Brent, second by John Paxman. All those in favor, please state aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. On to the consent agenda. We have item A and C remaining. I'll look for a motion to move the entire consent agenda.
This is Brent. Move to pass consent as presented for items A and C.
Second, Paxman.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. I think for those at Hatch, all of your technology is fighting for Wi-Fi resources. Sometimes I get this really long I. So,
I think I've heard like 7 or 12 ayes on some of these votes.
I kicked all my kids off the games so I could didn't have to fight them for my own resources. Okay, on to action agenda A, 7 North B Street, Circle Property RFP, approve selection committee recommendation. Let's see, is this? Is this Joan or is this Chris?
It will be Chris, but before Chris gets a chance to go over, I've asked David to kind of give the board an overview of how we got involved in this particular agreement to be this RFP to begin with, because we don't own the land. David's going to give a brief overview of how we kind of got to where we are today.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the CRA board, David Tolsis, board attorney. This RFP was an outgrowth of the settlement of a city lawsuit that was an attempt to foreclose liens that were imposed against the property located at 1511 Lucerne. They were city code enforcement liens The entity that owned that property was known as, or I should say, the individuals that were principals in the entity that owned that property were also principals of the entity known as Wenjo Partners. Wenjo Partners owned the property at 7 North B, and as part of the settlement of the code enforcement foreclosure matter, the parties agreed that Wenjo would convey the property located at 7 North B to the city of Lake Worth Beach, so that the city of Lake Worth Beach could then work with the CRA to develop the properties that are part of this RFP. Those properties being 15 North B, 7 North B, and 1602 Lake Avenue. So as part of the settlement agreement, there's a purchase and sale agreement between the CRA and the city for 15 North B and 1602 Lake Avenue. Both of those parcels are currently owned by the city, but will be conveyed to the CRA. 7 North B was conveyed before the settlement agreement process could be finalized, and it was conveyed to an entity, 7 North B LLC. Pursuant to the settlement agreement, 7 North B LLC agreed to sell the property to the city. Pursuant to the settlement agreement, there was a process for the determination of the purchase price of that property. So that purchase and sale agreement was approved by the City Commission and has since been assigned to the CRA so that the CRA could include it as part of this RFP. The actual purchase price for that property is, I'm trying to find it here, is $272,375.68. That's the price that whoever is the ultimate developer of the 3 lots will pay. So we're now at the point where the CRA has contractual control over all 3 lots. We will, in the next month or so, actually convey the 2 exterior lots from the city to the CRA, leaving the interior lot. And that lot will close pursuant to a subsequent development agreement between the selected proposer and the CRA. The CRA will essentially assign that contract to the developer, and the developer will then close on that property at the same time that it closes on the other 2 properties that are owned by the CRA. This process has gone on since 2019 in August, when the settlement agreement was first approved. But the city and the CRA both agreed that it was a good opportunity. So as complicated as it sounds, it's an opportunity for the CRA to unify those 3 lots into one development. So that's why we're here today, because the CRA has contractual control over all 3 lots. It issued the RFP, and now you're here tonight to determine who the successful developer would be. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, Chris, do you want to give an overview of the process and the staff recommendation?
Sure. This is Chris DeBrose with the CRA. In regards to this project, we did issue the request for proposals in July 2020. We requested that all proposals be due back by October 14th. This request for proposals was for 7 North, as David said, 7 North B, 1602 Lake Avenue, 15 North B. 1602 and 15 are both owned currently by the city of Lake Worth, or CRA. As a result of this RFP, we did receive 5, we were pleasantly surprised to get 5 different proposals back from 5 different development teams. After we pulled all the proposals in, reviewed them, scored them, met with each of the development teams on a Zoom call in November, the highest ranked development team ended up being Inhabit Development, with their proposal currently named The Perch. This is for a 28-unit development, mixed-use development on the site. And the site, by the way, is a little more than half an acre total of vacant property at the corner of, at the circle, which is Lake Lucerne and A Street. In your packet, you can see the basically all the visual of all the proposals that came in. from all the development teams. You have the minutes of the meeting and the scores of the review committee, which included myself, Joan, William Waters from the city of Lake Worth, and board member Mark Rickards. So as I said, the highest ranked development team was Inhabit Development, and that's led by Tim Carey. Tim is on the phone or on the Zoom call with us right now to answer any questions about the proposal. And what we're looking for is a approval to authorize staff to move forward with a development purchase and sale agreement for the development of the site with Inhabit Development.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. Thanks, Chris. Does the board wish to hear from Tim before we make a motion and have further discussion? Or do you want to have a motion? Okay. Well, why don't we look for a motion in a second, then we'll go to discussion, which can include Tim. Is there a motion?
This is Brent. I'll put forward a motion to approve the selection recommended for Inhabit Development for the perch at the North B Circle property.
I'll second that.
Okay, Emily, that's a motion by Brent and a second from Mark. Thank you. So in terms of discussion of, please, in your comments and questions, feel free to address either staff or if Tim Carey is available to address questions for him as well. So who would like to start? Mark?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just thought it might help to talk quickly about the selection committee. Page 31 actually has our scoring. I know everyone's looked at the packet. And page 12, I think, or 13 is the Inhabit project called The Perch for now. I agree with Chris. It was gratifying to see good proposals that are well thought out. They were serious applicants, not someone trying to get in right in front of the deadline. There was what emerged was Inhabit as a clear front runner. There was kind of two other projects that were in close contention for second. But all things considered, the Perch project, it seems both achievable and that they've thought through the design in a way that I think helped the scoring committee get them just slightly incrementally higher on several aspects. And that turns out that translates to 20 or 30 points between first and the close contest for second. So I'm happy to get into more detail, but I just wanted to say I'm very gratified with the quality of the submittals we got and also confident about the selection choice of the committee.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Mark. And I appreciate you, being on that committee. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, hey, this is Drew. So clearly, what was it that swung the point so much higher for that one company? Because some of the other proposals were quite attractive. And so I'm just curious as to, was it preparedness, financing? I'm not sure if there was something more behind the scenes that we couldn't see from the brief descriptions. I don't know whether that's Mark or Joan or.
Yeah, I think that's actually for Chris. And Chris, I actually didn't bring my scoring sheet, but I mean, I can talk from memory, but I'd rather you talk sort of looking at scores.
I mean, really the biggest factor was their capability, capacity to get, they have a project, as you know, the project taking place right down the street between E and F Street, the capability to complete that project and this one possibly simultaneously or close to simultaneously. That was a big factor for me. I mean, I can't speak for the other three members. The design, there was, as far as my opinion, this is just all opinion, the design for me was not the highest ranked, but as far as financial and capability and capacity, it's why I scored them the highest.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I can give you kind of my opinion to help at all. Brenda?
Yep. Sorry, I think it cut out a little bit.
Oh, no problem. I think for me, and I'm going to speak a little bit for William, but not too much. We appreciated that Inhabit read the design guidelines, were very familiar with the ULDRs, knew what they could do and what they couldn't do. Obviously, we don't really approve the final designs on everything, right? It goes through the city staff and then it goes to either planning and zoning, or in this case, planning and zoning, and then eventually to the commission. So really, I don't think most of us will really speak, like looking too much to the design to kind of say, oh, this one is so much better than this one. But I think what was really good about it is their finances were really, really, really good. They had a really good track history. We know from working with them before that they stick to all of their deadlines and sometimes even are ahead on their deadlines. And we knew that this development, along with the other development, really going to complement each other and really help to bring more stabilization to the west side, which is desperately needed at this point.
That's helpful. And I don't know if assuming we're in discussion, certainly as you just page through them, I would have to admit that the Free to Living one was quite striking. And I imagine everyone saw that, but just as an image to drive into Lake Worth Beach and see that mural, just, I don't know, could cause accidents, you know, it was quite striking, but I was inspired by it. I understand that it, you know, that isn't what you're not selling on the design at this stage in the process, but certainly as Inhabit looks forward, you know, and I was like this on many of our RFPs, that we're trying to create iconic imagery in Lake Worth, and that was very inspiring. So whoever put that in, I applaud them for doing it. Sorry it didn't work out on the scoring and so forth, but certainly as Inhabit goes forward, now we've got that seared in our brains. And so Inhabit can think about, you know, as the project develops and as they approach different entities within the city, how they might be able to create some sort of iconic impression as people drive into Lake Worth Beach is very impressive. That's all I've got, Chairman.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks for those comments. Anyone else? And again, if anyone wants to address Tim, he's here and able to participate.
Brendan, maybe Tim can just give us, I'm sorry, Brent, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear what John was saying, but Brendan, I did want to ask if Tim could speak to how things are going further east along the corridor, and just kind of, I'm very encouraged to see that someone that's in the process of developing and in this corridor, which is a critical corridor for us, but not an easy one, obviously, because there's a lot of moving parts and the parcels aren't always the most straightforward in shape and location. I'd like to hear how it's going on that and what drew Tim to submit again on the Circle property. And I also, as just, you know, before I hand over my moment to speak, I agree with Drew's comment in as much as it's probably one of the most visible kind of gateway properties that we're going to develop through the CRA, because it's right there on the Circle. And so I do think iconography or kind of the visual effect as somebody's coming into past the high school, and that's really when you enter what we're trying to foster as an extension of the downtown corridor. I hope that that's really a kind of a visual effect, whatever Inhabit ends up moving forward with the design. But if Tim could give us some input on how it's coming with the other properties and how that led his interest into this one, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So first, thanks to everyone for giving me the opportunity to present tonight, or at least speak to what's going on at both properties. Just a quick update on Village Flats. We've got bid packages out to 4 different GCs. We're just trying to figure out what the total cost will be. As soon as we have that down, which we suspect, well, we have to have everything back. The submittal date is the 29th of this month. We know of 2 firms that will have their bid packages back to us sooner than that. The other 2 I can't speak to. I haven't had any contact or update with them in the past week or so. But we're encouraged to see that GCs definitely are interested in this project, and they're trying to do, they understand that it's going to be competitive, and hopefully that spurs shovels in the ground quicker, permits, we'll go through the permit process. Hopefully that spurs everything to, get going as quickly as possible. We're excited about the design. We're excited about working with everyone in Lake Worth to make sure it's a project that everyone can appreciate. That's really the only update there. We've kind of been in a holding pattern just based on these GCs getting bids from their subs, so on and so forth. But we're excited about moving forward on that phase for sure. In regards to what drew me to this second property, one of my partners on this second property is Chuck Halberg, whom some of you may know. He did the 10 units on the Adoptive family, which is I want to say a block or 2 away, maybe three or 4 blocks away from that roundabout property that we went in on. And he was just big on, if we have a shot, and he's one of the firms that's bidding for the project at Village Flats. And he said, look, if you're already in that area and you have the ability to scale, then you certainly can build almost simultaneously. And that was something that was very exciting for us. The difference I think it's a block and a half away from the roundabout property. So it's a smaller project, but at the same time, we're hoping that we can get a design up, we can get the project going, hopefully get approvals in a faster manner than we did in this particular, or I should say Village Flats. And hopefully some of the building process can overlap. We foresee that happening, especially if there might be a few apartments for this Perch property, but the bulk of it will be townhomes. And that's something that Chuck can bang out 7 months. I believe the number I think he finished 10 townhome units for Adoptive family, but those were more complicated units, and he completed them, meaning he was out of there, everything done, people were moved in 10 months. These units wouldn't be as complicated, so his feeling is 7 to 8 months. So that's what kind of allows us to build simultaneously and overlap with Village Flats. And we're hopeful that can happen. Obviously, we've got a long way to go, but that's something that we think can happen. Mr. Bartlett, in regards to Frida Living, I would completely agree. I was for sure humbled by the results. I did not foresee that happening at all. I thought the mural Frida Living provided was really sharp, and I've actually connected with that artist or that developer on LinkedIn since then. So it's definitely something that we're keeping in mind. It's something we were looking for in our package, but at the same time, in working with our architects on this, we were a little more concerned in fitting in the right units on the property. They were able to, if you've seen the package, they were able to work in a living wall, which I did mention to them, but I didn't think it would take up so much of the renderings. But with that in mind, I've always committed to having something that's striking and that people see both as they enter Lake Worth from Lake Avenue in the southwest and as they exit on Lucerne heading directly west, but it would be the northwest or northeast portion of the property. In terms of what's going on, an update for this particular property, I've been having Microsoft Teams meetings with various representatives of the Florida Department of Transportation. They are actually in the midst of trying to finalize a concept to slow everything down in that area. I'm not sure, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn or talking out of class here, whatever the expression is. But they've got an issue where there are a number of accidents at the roundabout, and they're trying to figure out a way to slow traffic down. Lucerne Avenue in particular, as people head west, there are 3 lanes all heading west and very few stop signs. So people pick up speed. And if we're all honest with ourselves, we're all Americans who are not very used to roundabouts. And as I learned from the Florida Department of Transportation, on top of all that, as if that wasn't bad enough, the roundabout actually isn't designed correctly either. The idea of a roundabout is that it forces you to circle around and have to make a turn so that you're forced to slow down no matter what. That roundabout, you can actually, to some degree, make it in a straight shot. So what you see a lot of times is people barely yielding, and if they're heading straight out west, they kind of turn and then they whip back around and then they're flying on. That would then turn to Lake Worth Road, or yeah, that's right, and head straight west. And that creates a number of problems, especially when you consider that there's a high school crossing just west of that roundabout. So they're working on trying to slow things down, getting more pedestrian connectivity so that the high school and others can connect to that Lake and Lucerne corridor more easily. And they're just trying to figure out how our project affects that. With that in mind, we've already been told explicitly that we will not be able to exit or have a driveway on Lake Ave, which we were concerned about, and we weren't entirely sure it was possible, but they have confirmed that. That makes sense too, if you consider that as you're heading north on A Street, you can make a right turn and avoid the roundabout altogether and then merge onto Lake. And then there's the traffic that is on the roundabout and merges onto Lake. And then if we were to have a driveway, we would also then merge onto Lake. So you would have potentially 3 cars all coming at once, all merging onto Lake. It's understandable how they could see it as a recipe for disaster. I'm pleasantly surprised though. I was concerned they were going to restrict our site plan, our potential site plan even more. However, I've made some progress with one of the gentlemen who is designing their project for this area. And it appears as though, at least preliminarily, that we should be able to design a driveway or a curb cut on Lucerne Ave, which is great for us. It means that we'll be able to space things better, get a better site plan, and hopefully get better traffic and better flow. Most importantly, as we've seen with the Village Flats, in terms of garbage, placing garbage, getting the front loaders in and out of there in an easy fashion is always a challenge for every developer. But if we can get that access to Lucerne Ave, that would be absolutely huge. As to whether or not that happens, I've got a meeting scheduled with them for later this week on Thursday. So I'm hopeful that the powers that be and the primary players are all there, and we can move forward and agree that our current, or I should say our revised site plan does work and that it doesn't create any problems, and we can proceed from there. With all that said, I believe that's the latest and most current update I have.
Tim, thank you.
Sure.
Good information. Anyone have any follow-up or additional questions or comments before we make actually I think we need to read, if there might be some public comments, but any questions, comments? Okay, Emily, would you, if you do have public comment, would you read those?
Yes, one moment. Betty Resch, 521 Lake Avenue. Dear Miss Oliva and members of the CRA, I am writing today in response to the recommendations made by the selection committee on the B Street Circle project. Once again, the CRA has gone ahead with a substantial and important project without public meetings, acting again as a private developer with no obligation to the citizens of Lake Worth Beach. Your disregard of the public continues to astound. Having said that, I am aware of the project that the chosen developer has recently done for Adopt-A-Family. Apparently, Adopt-A-Family has more interest in the spirit of Lake Worth Beach than does the CRA. The project reflects the cottage Key West tropical look, which is in keeping with our city. This is the gateway to the city, the first impression, the look you have chosen to greet visitors to the Lake Worth Beach reflects none of the ideals in your stated priority A, maintain and promote Lake Worth's unique character. There is nothing unique about the plan which you are apparently going to approve. This is going to be the permanent gateway to the city. Coming in from Lake Worth Road, folks will be greeted with an anonymous modern facade. Had the CRA had any interest beyond erecting buildings, this unique parcel would have been an ideal gateway to the city with public spaces and perhaps art installations. After all, your priorities C, D, and E do talk about C, encouraging greater arts and cultural engagement and collaboration, D, improving access to the arts and culture downtown, and to E, strengthen public support for arts and culture. Those priorities are apparently disregarded when the CRA decides to develop. There are many ways to improve life and property values besides erecting buildings. I am not against responsive development. Perhaps this is just a cry in the wilderness, but could you have considered meetings with the public before you went full bore on this project? Richard Stowe, 414 North Federal Highway. The CRA appears to be once again recommending approval of a visual eyesore that does not meet the character test that best reflects buildings located in the 33460. That's all for public comment on this item.
Thank you, Emily. Let's go ahead and take a vote on the motion in the second. All those in favor, please state so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And Tim, thank you for your work in Lake Worth and your participation in this evening's meeting.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks, guys.
Looking forward to a beautiful project.
Absolutely. Will do.
Let's move on in our agenda to formally consent agenda item B, now action agenda item B. Joan, would you start us off on this one, please?
Sure. Last November, we had a meeting to discuss 1213, and at that meeting, we had Captain Bear from PBSO, we had Ricky Aiken from Inner City Innovators, and we talked about the building that we had bought several years ago for, I believe it was either $350 or $375. The building is 1213 Lake Avenue. It is an eyesore. It has been sitting there for over 18 years, boarded up, no windows, no doors. It's actually burnt out inside. There's no plumbing, there's no electric. There's no parking. There's really not a lot of anything to it. But because it had sat there for so long, we thought that, if we could get the owner to come down in price enough that maybe, we could do something useful with it. So we decided to try and do something for the community besides just build buildings, right? So knowing that we already have a couple different developments going up on Lake and Lucerne, we thought, along with Captain Bear, that the community, specifically the youth of Lake, really needed a place to come after school to do their homework, to perhaps get some mentoring. And it was something that it was going to be a joint effort between the city, the CRA, the Sheriff's Office, and Inner City Innovators. And all that would happen on the ground floor of this building. On the second floor of the building, we get a lot of requests for artist space, but artist space that's A, inexpensive, and B, that local artists can use and just rent. So we thought we would take advantage of the building, and on the second floor have probably 6 to 8 different little artist locations where artists could come in and do their work for a low price, and also contribute to the building, to the community. Obviously Hatch is right across the street. So in order to make this work, we reached out to a lot of different nonprofits and a lot of different foundations trying to find the money to do this, because we knew that the CRA doesn't have $400,000 to spend on bringing this building back to really being a building. And we were lucky enough to come across two different sources. One is a grant from Solid Waste Authority that Chris was able to get, and another was a private foundation that is willing to give us over $250,000 specifically for these youth programs that we thought would be so helpful to our community. And let me just remind everybody, Inner City Innovators is located in West Palm Beach, and right now it is specifically for African American youth. However, they are looking for a headquarters, and they are willing to open it up to both females as well as anybody from any ethnicity and any color. And we really thought that having a program like that so close to the redevelopment area and so close to the neighborhood would be really something very positive. This is the only building that the CRA owns. I mean, we have other properties that obviously we've been RFPing from that we bought from a line of credit, but as far as buildings go, a lot of people don't know, we don't even own Hatch. The only reason that we're actually in Hatch right now, which is owned by the city, is because we were able to do something kind of similar and get a large grant from the Department of State and Cultural Affairs from Florida, state of Florida, many years ago to fix it up. So the only kind of caveat with the foundation grant was that the money needed to go to a nonprofit. So our thought was, well, we could use the Cultural Renaissance Foundation, which has the same board and staff that the CRA has, and we could take the money in there and we could fix up the building and have it occupied by inner city innovators for, a lease term that we would negotiate later. And, after a few years or after a certain amount of time, if we thought that the building would be, much better used for live workspace or for business or something like that, we could always sell the building or transfer it back to the CRA, sell it back to the CRA. But we really thought that the particular layout that we came up with in November, which everybody at the time seemed very favorable of, including the commission, was really the best idea for us as far as what to do with this building in the short term and provide some really needed services to the community. So at this point, we need to transfer the building to the Cultural Renaissance Foundation in order for us to access the grant money. It's a rule. There's no way around it. If that's what we want to do, we want to move forward with the building having these two uses in it, mentoring and also the art space. Without that money, we will not be able to do it. Like I said, for those of you who haven't been in the building, it's just a shell. There's really nothing there but some concrete walls. The roof needs fixing. Like I said, there's no windows, there's no doors, there's no plumbing, there's no water, there's nothing. So this was a way for us to kind of do two things: obviously fix it up and make it look 10 times better, something very attractive on the west side, and also provide what we thought was much needed programming for the youth of Lake Fork.
Joan, thank you for that overview. Does anyone want to make a motion on this, and then we can have some further discussion?
Chair, this is John Paxman. I move we approve the purchase and sale agreement as provided.
Thanks, John.
I'll second.
Thank you. Let's have some discussion. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, John Paxman. I just think it's a no-brainer. We transfer ownership from one entity we control to another entity we control so we can get money to fix it up so people can use it and put it to good use. It's a no-brainer. Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chair, we are currently in the process. We've put out a 30-day notice, so the agreement will not be executed until, if we don't get any proposals, then the chair can execute the agreement. If we do get any other proposals, then we'll have to bring that back to the board to confirm the action that the board wants to take with respect to the property. And then at some point in time, if we don't get any proposals, the agreement will be presented to the Cultural Renaissance Foundation for approval as well. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to restate part of that because I think it's important for everybody to know that this will be advertised. So it's not a closed deal going from the CRA to our foundation. It will be advertised to others. A little bit of a tough sale given the state of the building, but it will be advertised. Any other comments?
I think we got one public comment in our email. And I don't know if there's a way to address that, just to be clear on what the relevance is.
Yeah, I would plan to ask Emily to read because I think there's probably at least one. But if you want to go ahead and address it now, because it is nice to be able to address the concern of the public. Because generally we do those readings and then we move right to,
Okay.
go ahead, please. Emily, do you want to read those and then we can, any of us can, if we want to address the concern.
Sure. Cliff Kohlmeyer, 503 First Avenue South. Dear CRA Board, under item B of tonight's consent agenda, the CRA proposes to sell a property located at 1213 Lake Avenue to a nonprofit organization called the Lake Worth Cultural Renaissance Foundation, Inc., whose 6 board members also sit on the CRA board. This transaction has the appearance of self-dealing by the members of the CRA. Rather than sell to the highest bidder in the public interest, this sale would further reduce public oversight and accountability for taxpayer-funded assets and put it in the hands of individuals who represent the seller. The public deserves an explanation tonight as to why this transaction is in the public interest and not an example of self-dealing by the board of the CRA. That's the only public comment for this item.
Okay.
If I may, Chair, I mean, the backup materials provided by the staff clearly shows why we're doing this. It's only because we're able to receive public funds to renovate the building so it can be put to future use for a resource center for the people of the city of Lake Worth Beach. It's not because we're doing it to hide something. And it's pretty much obvious that the person who said this didn't read what was in there.
Thank you, John. Well said. My thoughts exactly. So if anyone else wanted to add to that or has additional questions.
Really, I guess maybe it's for David. I mean, I think it's a great idea, a great deal. This is something we should absolutely do. I just want to make sure there isn't a conflict or something like that. I don't know.
David Tolles, as board attorney, no, there's no conflict. The CRA decides to convey property to a not-for-profit entity. Certainly there's no special benefit coming to any of the members of the CRA. And we are publishing notice as required by the statute. So certainly any interested party has the right to submit a proposal. If they do submit any proposals, those will come to the board, but there's nothing to prohibit the CRA from conveying the property to the not-for-profit entity.
Perfect.
In this particular building, I believe has been in that state for at least 10 years. I've lived in the city for almost 16. I don't know. I can't recall back that far. It was advertised for sale for, I don't know, maybe something else. I mean, years. It's. I think we're well within our mission here, well inside of our mission to take this building and bring it back to something that we all want to see in the city. So,
I
any
appreciate
other?
that, Chairman. And really, I think it's a great idea. I just want to make sure we don't get tripped up on some sort of technicality or something like that. So that's all I was after with David and the record.
Perfect. I definitely appreciate and value that. Why don't we go ahead and call this to question? All those in favor, please state so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. I apologize to the group. We have the new agenda, and there was an item on there that we need to take up next on the action agenda.
It's
Go ahead.
workforce housing, 28 youth workforce housing units at the Bohemian.
That's right. And
$1.8 million.
so I apologize because I referred to that last item as B, but really, David, I don't know if it's best to now call this C or.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so if sorry for that, and if we're agreeable, we'll call this action item C, which is inclusion of workforce housing in the Bohemian project. So if Joan, is this yours?
It is.
Okay, please.
So as many of you remember, since it really wasn't that long ago, in May of last year, we approved a development with Affiliated for the old Padron property at 1017 Lake Avenue. That development will include 200 residential units, ground floor retail, a parking garage, and also public parking. And it's a joint effort between Affiliated and the city of Lake Worth to provide those public spaces. At that time, they did mention to us that they would be trying to go to the county to participate in the county's workforce housing exchange program. In order to do that, to get the county workforce funds, though, they have to negotiate with the private developers. So Affiliated went to GL Homes, who is building a really big development, I believe in Boca. They don't want to build any workforce housing, so in exchange, GL has to put $1.8 million into like a fund where Affiliated would then come and take that money and build up to 44 workforce units. As a reminder, workforce units are those for households making less than 140% of area median income. In order to get the $1.8 million, I'm guessing working with the county and working with another developer, the process can be really daunting and take a really long time. However, there has been an exception made on our part where we mentioned to the county that the CRA would be willing to come in, kind of take the $1.8 million and then pay it out to the developer as these units are built, knowing that we have, extensive experience with obviously NSP and affordable housing and how to, pass these dollars through and get the units built. So GL Homes has agreed to it, Affiliated's agreed to it, the county's agreed to it. The backup is for your review there, but really all we need tonight is the board to approve us the signing of a letter saying that we will facilitate this $1.8 million flowing through the CRA. The CRA would take it into our account. We would then pay it to Affiliated as the workforce units are being built. And we would then have, out of the 200, we'll have 44 workforce units right in our downtown. Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
what is 140% of median income for this day and age?
Yeah, good question.
Can you give me a minute while you talk?
How about roughly? I'll take a range.
I think it's about 48,000.
I think it's higher than that. I believe 140% of AMI is closer to about 80,000.
Okay, thank you.
But I'll let.
Okay, while you're doing that, let's see if there's any other questions or comments, please. Take a motion.
I move that we approve the staff recommendation to the board that we approve the CRA's participation in the exchange program and direct the chair and director, if needed, to sign.
Okay, thanks, John. Second?
This is Brent. I'll second that motion.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Any other questions, comments, discussion on this?
I have comments.
Please.
I think by adding the workforce housing, we bring this project with at least 28 of the units, if not more, into the purview of being able to be afforded by a single working teacher or a police officer starting out, and other starting out, or maybe a little more than starting out folks, but a lot of people who might not otherwise be able to afford to live downtown in the city of Lake Worth in a single family home. And I think it's a really great idea.
Thank you.
I do have an answer for you. So 100% to 120 of AMI is 79,000 to 94,000. And if you go all the way up to 140, it's anywhere from 79,000 to 110,000.
Okay, maybe not everybody that I just said could get in there, but a lot more people can
Well,
afford.
140 and below. So.
Okay.
Okay. No, thank you. I appreciate those comments. Anyone else? Okay. Any public comment, Emily?
There's no public comment on this item.
Thank you. All those in favor, please state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Okay, Joan, you have a report for us?
I do. I have 3 quick things to go over with the board. One is there's an update in your packet on 1000 Lake Avenue. I was able to tour the building with some city staff in December. There's still a lot of work to do, but compared to what it looked like just a few years ago when we owned it, it's like night and day. And so extending an invitation for the board for perhaps next month for members of the board to go tour the building so you can actually see all the improvements that have been done. And probably either in February or March, I would like Mr. Shaw to actually be in person in one of these meetings so the board can ask questions and we can get an update on really everything that's going on with that particular property and some of the others that he's bought around there. Another really important announcement, we've been working rather diligently on trying to set up this public meeting for the Element, which is the project that's somewhat proposed downtown. We are targeting either February 11th or February 18th. We're still making sure that there's no other city or public meetings going on either of those dates. The developer can do either date, and we're also working with the neighborhood association to make sure that we can have a facilitator for the meeting and also have an AICP person available, as well as some staff if there's questions regarding zoning or land use, etc. So again, the 2 dates for the public meeting for Element are tentatively set for February 11th or February 18th. And the purpose of that meeting is to get feedback before we go back and try to redesign this building again. We really want to get feedback to know what people are expecting, what people want it to look like, and getting as much feedback before we do the drawings or the layout again, because it's all very expensive to do. And last but not least, staff has been working on the signs and the planters in downtown. If any of you have been downtown in the last, 5 years, you'll see that the ones that we do have that were managed by the city and installed by the city, I don't know, maybe as much as 20 years ago, are literally falling apart. We have some ideas on how to, make them a little more modern and coordinate with the signage that we have. And there's also perhaps the ability to make them look similar to the way that they already do. But we have staff is working with a couple different companies trying to come up with some concepts. We will be reaching out to the board and probably wanting to get some other feedback from maybe downtown property owners or downtown businesses before we go ahead with any specific design. But I did want to let the board know that we're actively working on that. And that is all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, John. Any questions for Joan on the executive report? Comments?
I'd just like to say that I would, Paxman here, that I would be very, I would like to go take a look at 1000 Lake.
Yeah, agreed. Okay.
And Brendan, I have a question for Joan. The public meetings, those are going to be in the city commission chambers? Are they like a CRA meeting, a city meeting, or it's just?
They're going to be hosted by the neighborhood association. So there's not anybody really, we want it to be, what do you call it? Not transparent, but we don't want it to be one-sided in any way. So we'll be there to answer any questions. But we're going to do it Zoom, and we're going to do it similar to the way that the Gulfstream Hotel meeting went, whereby people would submit questions ahead of time, and there'll be a facilitator from the neighborhood association who will go ahead and ask the questions of the developer, and then the developer will answer, obviously, the questions that they're given.
Thank you.
Was that the NAPC or the Downtown Jewel?
I think Downtown Jewel.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. Let's move to board member comments. Let's start with Drew, since you're on the top of my little screen.
That's how I do it too, Chair. You know, the Hollywood Squares. No, I just am impressed. Every time we come to a board meeting, we got a major thing going on. That means we're doing major work and major good for the community. And so just kudos to staff for keeping us going through weird pandemics and social distancing and everything that we're doing, but we're not slowing down, and I just appreciate that. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Yep, good comments. John?
Yeah, I just think it's really looks like an interesting deal over there off the circle, and that's good. And you know, and the thing with 1213 Lake Avenue, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, we get a more inclusive form of housing. It doesn't really cost us anything. All we are is the facilitator of the deal by being a conduit for money passing from one entity to another. And I think that's great. And we knew it was coming anyway, most likely, hopefully. So I'd just like to say, I hope everyone stays safe. I know it's still kind of crazy out there for almost a lot of people. I have so many friends who have gotten sick, and I wish everybody who can stay safe. And if you do get the stuff, that you have the least amount of it that you can possibly get. And if you can get your vaccinations, that you get them. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Mark?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I echo that, John. It's forefront on my mind. I know there's an end in sight, but in the meantime, not getting fatigued with the boring but effective things. I would encourage everyone to keep that up for a little while longer. Also, gratified at the progress we're able to make even during a pandemic. I just wanted to make one quick comment, and that's just about the format, and it's just my opinion. But while we're doing this virtually, I think it would be helpful to read the public comment into the record and then have comment from the board. And I'm only saying that I'm very conscious lately of kind of the power of disinformation. I know that I think Betty Resch is running for office, and Richard Stowe's email. I can ignore the sort of snarky overtones because their question is an actual question. But it feels like a lot of posturing and grandstanding over something that I have a hard time believing that Betty's confused about. She knows that the CRA is not approving a design. We're not approving a facade. We're not approving a site plan. We're not that board. We're looking at 5 quality responders and trying to make a decision about who's most qualified to move forward through the real process, through the planning and zoning board, and through the community development division and staff review and architectural review and a chance for public input. So I just, from a looking ahead to this year, if there's a way for us to get public comment with a chance to respond rather than public comment and then a vote, I think that might be helpful for the public, perhaps not the people that responded, because I'm not sure they were confused, to be honest, but for other people who were listening. And that's it.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate those comments. How about Brent? Trying to stay focused here. Okay.
Thanks, Brendan. Yeah, I want to echo what Mark said as far as kind of, I think a lot of this concern with the transparency really started with the element, and that's kind of from a little bit of NIMBYism on behalf of some of the folks that have commented. I don't disagree with their concern. I mean, I know everybody feels passionately about Lake Worth and wants to make sure that, you know, we succeed, but we succeed in our own way, and that we emphasize the character of our town, which is very unique. But when we were doing things on Dixie Highway at like the mid, we didn't have any of these comments. And I just think it's kind of indicative of suddenly we're getting some comments that would lead people to believe we're doing something differently or have some ulterior motive. And really the focus is just on finding folks that can succeed with projects and put new and quality building stock into our city. the idea that there's self-dealing involved with anything transferring to a nonprofit is just absurd. I mean, we're just volunteers that are trying to participate in making the city better. So I understand and appreciate the input. I think the idea that we want to have a visually impressive corridor as you enter the city is a really good thing, and I agree with that intention. And I'm excited when you look from the traffic circle east. All of the stuff we're doing tonight is really in the part of downtown that's been left behind for so many years. And it's not just development. We've even got a community center we're talking about here. So I think the CRA is definitely going in the right direction. And hopefully through this meeting with Downtown Jewel, maybe we can get everybody a little closer to the same page. But I'm glad that I'm on this team working on it. So thank you to staff and fellow board members.
Okay, thank you, Leah. I think you're on mute.
Can people not in this room hear me? Okay.
There you go.
So I would like to echo some of the comments and just say, I think one of the things we need to keep in mind is occasionally perfect is the enemy of the good. And the way things have existed, like the building over here on Lake, the traffic circle parcel, where the mid is now, what that looked like before and what that looked like for years before was not even good. So, and I agree that we're at the front end of this process. There's a lot of process to go yet. So I think standing still isn't doing anything for us. And the responses we got are very encouraging. In addition, I would like to sort of applaud Joan and her staff's acumen and efforts in procuring these grants. In a time where money is tight everywhere, and you all put together, what, $350,000? That's amazing. So thank you. And that's pretty much it. Everybody stay well.
Thank you, everybody. I agree with everybody's comments, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness of them. I don't know. It's at some point it feels like a new low where we have certain people coming against this particular opportunity on this particular building that's been blighted in our community for years, possibly a decade. No one wanted to buy it. Joan had a vision. She was asked, if this could be used for that purpose from our sheriff's department partners. We had encouragement from the city commission, city manager, and the opposition has to go to a new low and state that there's something underhanded, and they have to claim that we're taking something off of the tax roll. They're not able to see the vision and the opportunity that we're trying to put forward, and that's sad to me. But we're gonna stay focused, and I'm glad that this board is cohesive on that effort, and appreciate staff as well and all they did in getting this money to make this building beautiful. And I should have started with Happy New Year, but I wish all of you a Happy New Year, and please stay safe and healthy. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn, please. John?
Move adjournment.
Okay.
Second.
Motion in a second. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.